Welcome to another episode of Inside the Headset with New Palestine High School head football coach Kyle Ralph. I am special teams coordinator, wide receiver coach Wes Anderson, also the community relations director for Southern Hancock Schools. And coach, going to talk about the Cathedral game today, and I know from a big picture standpoint, in the time that I've been with you since 2016, I felt like this was probably one of the bigger games outside of our community. You know, this was one I think people circled on the calendar in the off season when the IHSAA kind of did the rearranging there, and Snyder goes back up and Cathedral comes back down, and I think as soon as that happened, I think a lot of Indiana football fans, not necessarily, probably New Palestine football fans too, but I think statewide, this was the game that everybody wanted. So look forward to talking about that today. But before we jump into the game here, had a fan question, one of our fans, and they asked a question about our punt return. So I'll kind of let you start that and explain the question, and then I'll kind of chime in here too, since special teams is kind of what I do.
Yeah. So, first of all, we really like, if you guys have questions, we really want this to be interactive as well. So, we've had a couple bits of Q&A, and actually one of the questions that this particular fan asked me is there a possibility for some kind of a Q&A session? We can try to work something like that out, but right now the easiest way to probably do this is just submit your questions, whether you want to send them to us in an email or a comment on the video here on YouTube, or a comment on Twitter, and then we'll address those things. So, yeah, we really wanted this to be interactive. So whether you're a coach or a fan or someone that randomly has bumped into this, please submit your stuff. So, kind of one of a friend of mine that's a fan, actually, that I met a couple of years ago, sent me a question. And, really the gist of it was kind of over the years, we just don't seem to return a lot of punts, and we let a lot of them, quite frankly, just hit the ground without much of an attempt at a return and kind of roll wherever they go. And he just kind of asked, is that part of the philosophy? Is that part of the scheme of things? Is it just the fact that you've got so much confidence in your offense that the couple of yards that might roll don't matter, or the yards that you'll get on the return don't matter? And so I said, no, we'll absolutely go over that then tomorrow in the next episode there, and we'll answer it for you. So I think it's it's a multifold answer, to be honest. There are a lot of things that go into that particular part of special teams. So one, we do practice it a lot. I know you mentioned yesterday a little bit about, our punt team, we don't practice as often.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I'm one of those, we're going to go for it on fourth down every time kind of guys, but we have been fortunate, obviously, that our offense has been pretty good, and we just don't end up in punting situations very often. And I am pretty aggressive, so if we do get ahead and it's something that's a fourth and manageable in a good situation, depending upon how our defense has been playing, I may go for it anyway. So now we have forced a lot of punts, so that is something that we practice a ton. And there is a lot that goes into that, and just my general philosophy. So for me, with the actual punt return, I do want to field the punts if possible. It is not that I have some kind of a strict order of don't touch the ball. I realize that field position is important. There are some games where it is significantly more important than other games are going to be. And we fire punts out of the jugs machine at our kids pretty much every day. So we work on it a lot. To me, though, as a game goes on and we get to see sometimes what their punt plan is, or we see how the game starts to unfold, there have been plenty of times where I've kind of made the executive decision on the headset, and you've been very agreeable to this, and you're going to explain this probably here in a minute, but because of the way that we run our punt block, there's an injury possibility inherent in being essentially the only guy back there. And what I'm not going to have happen is if we go up 14 and it looks like it's about to be 21-0, or we're ahead by 3 touchdowns or more, I don't want that guy back there essentially by himself taking on 7 to 8 people. There's no sense in that. And there have been a couple of games where, we have fully intended to catch these punts and stuff, and we try to catch them if we can. But there have been a couple of those times where I'll look out there and make the decision and just yell. This year it was Brody, for example. I'll yell out to Brody and kind of give him the this signal. That means don't touch the ball. We're ahead by 14. We're ahead by 21. There is no sense in him standing back there, looking up for that punt, and all of a sudden, catching one under the chin, and now we've lost Brody for the night or something. So some of it's that. It's just kind of managing a potential injury factor, in my opinion. And okay, the ball bounces 15 yards. I'd much rather have to make our offense get 15 more yards than Brody take one to the throat. So, or any of the punt returners that we've had. So, there's also a little bit of, I guess the second part of that then is, I want the ball back in our offense's hands. I do have an extreme amount of confidence in our offense, and the ultimate goal is to make sure that our really good offense has the ball coming back out. And, those punt returns are difficult, especially some of the games that we've played. I think of this year that were wet or windy, and you make an error and you fumble that ball. Well, now our defense just worked their butt off to force a 3 and out, and now you muff the punt, and here they come again to have to play defense again, and we don't get the ball back on offense. So, there's a lot that factors into those things, and some of it's situational. There have been some times where I've told the punt returners, hey, you've got to go get this. Like, go get in front of it and make sure that we stop the ball. We can't get pinned inside of our own 20 here. You've got to make a play on this thing. So that's really kind of where it's at. If we have the opportunity to do so, obviously I'd like to get, and we don't usually even return them anyway. We just try to fair catch it and make sure the ball belongs to us. So some of that then is revolving around the philosophy that you came up with a couple of years ago when you became the special teams coordinator, that you had kind of pitched to me and I agreed with fully. And I understood that when you decided to make that choice that I really liked, that we were going to sacrifice return yards in the punt game. So to me, that just became part of the built-in overall plan of, okay, this is what the pros are of this option, which I'll let you explain here in a second, because it's kind of what you pitched to me. But the pros of this option are this, the cons of this option are this, and one of the cons of the option is you're not going to get punt return yards. And I was okay with that. To me, in general, our average punt return, it might be 8 to 10 yards anyway. That's one inside zone for us. We're going to get it back. We average over 8 yards of carry on inside zone. We're going to get it back in a play or two. So, but the pros of what I'll let you explain here, though, for our philosophy significantly outweighed the con of we might not get a lot of punt return yards. And to me, that was acceptable.
So I'm actually gonna grab one of my clinic presentations here, if I can find it. And actually, let's just do this. It's on Huddle. So I'll talk a little bit about the philosophy first. So we 3 years ago we became a full-time punt block team, and that was kind of one of the things when I became a special teams coordinator that I really wanted to do was to have a full philosophy, and I wanted to be able to apply that philosophy to everything that we do. And if our fans are curious, I can show that to you here. Give me just a second. Here it is. So let me share my screen real quick. So this is our philosophy statement, and it's really long, and I realize that. But this is my philosophy for everything that we do on special teams: aggressive making plays, change momentum and field position in the game, short fields for the offense, long fields for our defense. That's going to help us win. Everybody knows we're super aggressive on offense and defense. We want to be the same way on special teams. We attack kickers and punters, punish kick return schemes, kick returners. We want to maximize big plays. So part of that then is being a full-time punt block team. And when you're a full-time punt block team, you send everybody you got at the punter, and that means there's nobody back there to block for your returner. So I'll say this. Are there punts that I wish we would catch? Yes. Yeah, sure. Do I lose sleep over that? No, I don't. Like you said, it's okay. We're going to get 10 right back. Hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we'll get those yards right back. So I'll say this, our two objectives when our opponent punts. One is that we block it, and we've actually been pretty good at that. I think we've got 12 and 17 of those in the last 3 years where we've blocked them. We've blocked them or tackled the punter. And then the other thing that I talk about that I'm interested in are what I call disruptions. And so we don't get a block, but we still force something bad to happen. And there are 4 things that go into a disruption. One is a bad snap, where the punter's got to scramble, it's over his head, it's on the ground, whatever. 2 is a kick of less than 20 yards. 3 is a return of more than 20 yards. And 4 is we get them to call timeout. And I realize that there are varying levels of badness associated with those 4 things, but they're all generally bad for our opponent, and that's what we want. So, the whole plan, honestly, is to try to disrupt what they do and force them to make a mistake on that team. That's priority 1. And we're going to do everything we can to force that priority. After that, if they get a kick away, and if it's good, and if it's fieldable, sure, go get it. But we have forced so many bad things to happen that, honestly, we really don't get a lot of great chances at it. I don't know what you think. I think in an average game, I'd say it's less than 1 a night. It's different in different games. Sometimes, like in the Valpo game, man, that punter could really go. And there were probably 2 or 3 that we let go that we shouldn't have. And that's okay. Again, that's part of the deal. But there are the other side of that coin where there are some nights where there isn't a single one of those that's even fieldable, where they're hitting the ground at 19 yards and running. We're not going to pick that up, and we're not going to run it. We're not going to take the risk. So
yeah, I think one of the things to just backtrack, I remember that when you pitched me this idea, you talked to a lot of people
mm-hmm.
and done a lot of research on it, and to kind of go back, obviously we selected the block, but I remember your pitch was essentially, look, there's 2 ways to do this. We're either going to be a punt block or a punt return team. And you said, I think that it matches our philosophy better and our kids better that we're punt block, not punt return. And I mean, you didn't really have to say much more than that. You had me at hello. I mean, I was all for it, and I think you do a good job of making it really smart each week that, we're a full block team, but we also, all the guys that are potentially eligible, we have them covered, and we're not just reckless and silly about it. But
this will be a good example to talk about too, because Cathedral does some really unique stuff in how they punt. So
yeah, they do. Yeah. So it was to me, again, like you said, then I think because of the pressure that we put on, this is probably another one of those small little elements in there, like just one of those little things where, look, guys, you can't let them block a punt. When the teams that we play, look, if it's 7 or 14-0 and we got to punt, you got to speed up. And I know you've charted this, but we've seen this happen where teams will come out against us and have a completely different punt style in, just so we haven't been able to plan for it. And that way our block is somewhat negated, but you fix that on the sidelines. But We've seen that happen. We've
Hmm.
seen really slow operation times shave almost an entire second off because their
Yeah.
punters a one-step punt, and then what you get from that is a bad punt because
Hmm.
they're punting off of one step what they're not used to, and they'll get a bad punt. So, yeah, I mean, some of it has become a product of I think what we do there. And again, you know, if and a lot of teams try to punt it out of bounds anyway. They just try to get rid of the ball and get out of bounds on us. So, yeah, I mean, all those things combined with, you know, we're trying to block it. We're essentially going to send, you know, 7 to 8 kids after every punt you have. The other kids are covering people essentially in man-to-man coverage, and there's one guy back there by himself. Um, he effectively has zero blocking is kind of
Hmm.
what, you know, without you saying that in the previous thing as far as scheme is concerned, I mean,
Yeah.
really that punt returner has nobody actively blocking for him.
Hmm.
Now, we used to be a punt return and a punt block team, and it was good. But I think that the kids have really enjoyed the fact that we're coming after everything you do. Again, like I said, the pro of that is, like you just mentioned, we have significantly affected other teams' punting game. The
Hmm.
con is we don't get many return yards, and again, most likely we are not going to score a special teams touchdown off of punt return. It just
Yeah.
it isn't going to off of an actual return. Now we've scored
Right.
them off of blocks. You know, we've blocked punts or tackled punters in the end zone or you know, whatever it might be. But yeah, we're not going to score a touchdown off of an actual
Right.
returner catching a punt. So
You know, the other part of that too, you know, just from a time perspective in terms of the practice time and everything, you know, you said it a little bit, you know, you're either a punt return team or you're a punt block team. My belief is you can't be both. And you've kind of
yeah,
got to pick.
that was your pitch. You can't. We're not going to
Yeah.
be able to do both things, and I thought
Right.
that was great. Let's be really, really good at one of the two, and I
Yeah.
love. That's why I love that idea.
Yeah. So, you know, two totally different styles, two totally different philosophies. There's not enough time to practice both. I mean, ideally, situationally, would I love to set up a wall return once or twice in against a big opponent? Yeah, I would. But I'm also not going to spend the weeks and weeks and weeks to practice it to call it twice. So, you know, that's the bigger result of we're going to let a putt bounce that our returner is not 100.0% comfortable with, and that's always been my instruction to him is if there's even a seed of doubt, if there's even just a little bit of concern, don't touch it. Let it go. Make sure make sure that ball belongs to us. You know, if you come in there and try to force something and you drop it or it hits you and they recover it, that's the worst possible thing that can happen. As long as our offense comes out, I don't care what yard line it's on, that's a win. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and jump in here and start talking a little bit about Cathedral. I got rid of that so I could pull up my special teams slide here. All right. So here we go. They deferred, and so we're going to take the ball, which I don't think we've talked about this yet. Is really what you prefer, and honestly, I think it's what our kids prefer.
Yeah, again, just kind of one of the general philosophies of you know, me as a head coach. Again, I think this one is one of the more unconventional and probably not generally agreed upon by the overall football community. But you know, most people want to defer and then get the ball to start the second half. To me, um, I like to be really aggressive. We have taken the ball every game that we've won the toss since I've been the head coach. And I want our offense out there, and I want to try to get 7 points on the board as rapidly as possible. So
Hmm.
it's something the kids have really bought into, and they like. You know, they kind of love that that feeling of wanting to get down there and score right away. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. I mean, there's plenty of times. A Decatur game that we just watched is a good example of you know, we get the opening kick and go right down the field, and then we don't score. And we got a big old zero on the board. So,
Hmm.
you know, there's definitely times where It does not work in our favor. And again, I think conventional football would significantly disagree with taking the ball like that all the time. But for me, kind of like I said yesterday, it's a little bit of establishing my personal attitude. I was talking to a group of coaches yesterday on a Zoom chat, and they were kind of asking some questions about that. And I told them this yesterday. It's kind of me putting my own personal attitude on that side of the ball. And I think that's important. And I think our kids feed off of it. And yeah, again, sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't, but it's just kind of who we are now and what we do. And our kids like it. So we keep on doing it.
So as we get going here, and we've done this with the other two games we've done, I talk a little bit about their personnel and how you felt, we matched up with them and what that did for the game plan.
Yeah, this was, again, not necessarily one of the games where, like I mentioned yesterday with Decatur and a little bit with Center Grove, where it wasn't a game where we just had a bunch of mismatches in problems in regards to, okay, this guy's a Division I guy, that guy's a Division I guy, there's another Division I guy. Oh boy, this, they were very similar to us in regards to personnel as far as I thought overall talent level was concerned. It was really weird because I felt like they were almost a mirror image of us in a lot of ways. Their defense had, I think, in my opinion, one of the best players that I've seen since I've been up here. I don't know. I thought he was wildly under-recruited, which I would say the same for our own particular player. But their adjuster, who I think is number 25,
yep.
The Shiloh Means kid, him and Maxon were, in my opinion, him and Maxon, I think, were just carbon copies of one another. I thought he was one of the most overall productive players that I've seen since I've been up here. I mean, he leads their team in tackles from free safety, and he also leads their team in interceptions. And he was a major eraser for them. And the way that they used him was a problem because it's similar to us in the fact that where they play him at, you really can't block him. And so he's free no matter what in their scheme. I mean, he's going to be running around essentially unblocked. So he was a big issue. And obviously we really did not want to throw the ball anywhere to near where he was. So if he shaded to one side, we just weren't going to let him play it. And so we tried to kind of negate him as best we could. We figured a little bit in their scheme that his job was going to probably be to stay with Charlie as much as he possibly could and make sure that Charlie got tackled. It just kind of to us made sense that his responsibility, the way that they play, was going to be to make sure that Charlie can't beat them. And so that at least made me feel good. I remember part of our plan that we even gave the kids in the scouting report was, run game wise, we're going to try to get a hat on a hat, and essentially we're going to accept that challenge and find out how many times he can tackle Charlie. And if those two met each other 25 times in a game, we felt like Charlie's going to win that battle more often than not, and we'd be okay there. So. They got a Division I guy back there. They had a Division I linebacker standing there in the box as well. Their defensive linemen were rotational, but all, they had different things that each were really good at. The big issue was, and you're going to see in a second here, in the middle of their defense, then they've got a big kid that's got to be. He's got to be about 350 or 60 pounds at least. And he had given people trouble all year long, just being a big old space eater that can kind of move in a little bit of a limited window. And teams had tried to kind of challenge that for some reason on film that we'd seen, from those recent weeks and whatnot. And, I mean, you just can't block him. And you have to double team him, and even when you double teamed him, you couldn't do anything with him.
Hmm.
So he's taken up two people and he's beating one person. So that is a massive problem. Especially right in the middle of the defense, where we like to run our inside zone. He's standing right there.
Hmm.
And that was a major problem for us. So, and then I guess above just kind of those major personnel issues that we thought that we had. I mean, our center was 225 or 30 pounds. I mean, he's given up, 166% of his body weight or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
he's given up 150% of his body weight to that kid, and that is a lot. So outside of all those things, I know a couple guys on their staff really well, and they're some of the finest coaches that I think you're going to find in regards to preparation, technique, assignment, scheme, using their talent to what they, what they have. And Cathedral is one of the blue blood programs around Indiana, and they've had great teams for years, and they get great players, and they've got a fantastic winning culture. And those coaches do an exceptional job. So their schemes were difficult. What you're going to see us do a lot of in this game then, because the schedule they play, and this is kind of one thing we talked to the kids about, and I have no bones about saying this to our boys, because it's the reality of it is very, very real. Their schedule is a national caliber schedule that has to stay inside of the Midwest because of the state's travel rules. So, they essentially play three of the big boys from the GCL in Cincinnati, where I played and came from. So they play St. X, Elder, and Moeller pretty much every year. They go play a couple of the real powerhouse Kentucky schools each year. This is a particular year they played Trinity, who was ranked nationally at the time, and they beat. So they knocked Trinity off. They've gone up and played some of the elite programs from Michigan over the years, and all kinds of stuff. And then they'll play the 6A schools from Indiana. So they'll play Center Grove. They'll play, whatever. And I think they might have even played Penn in recent years from up north. So their schedule is, and then they play like Chittard and stuff, who's a really good private 3A school this year. So I kind of told the kids, look, guys, here's the thing. They have seen better than what we have at every position at some point this year. They've played D1 quarterbacks. They've played D1 tailbacks. They've played D1 linemen. They've seen D1 receivers. We can't offer them any single spot on our team that is probably overall better than what they have played against, And so what I leaned on with the kids was, what they haven't seen is a team that will play as well as we do as a team. And we've got to lean on that. We've got to lean on each other. We've got to lean on the fact that our execution is maybe better than some of those teams they've played. We don't particularly lean on a singular player as much as people would like to think that Charlie does everything for us. We've got some beyond capable wide receivers, and our quarterback is talented and all that stuff. So plus we have 11 kids that play defense. So that was a big part of kind of our mental preparation for our kids, is that, look, we don't really offer them anything that they've not seen this year as far as individual talent is concerned. Kyle, Maxton, and Charlie are obviously special players, but they had seen, elite level Power 5 kids in those positions before. It's not like any of those guys would have just, blown their mind when they turn out. I mean, they're not 5-star kids, and they'd played 5-star kids. So, that was a big part of the talk. And then, so then to backtrack, you're going to see here really early, especially this first play here, and then a couple other ones. We came up with some pretty good stuff offensively, and one of my general philosophies as a coordinator, and I learned this a long time ago when I was back in Ohio, and there's a story behind it, but I'm going to save time and not really explain it and go through it. But in the read game, one of my philosophies is, if you can't block them, don't block them. And this big nose guard, we felt like we could only block him if we got him tired.
Mm-hmm.
And we felt like, we eve out as games went on or series went on, his effectiveness really fell off. And you're going to see us essentially early in this game here not even touch him.
I'll go ahead and run this because this is one of them here.
Yeah, I essentially took two plays that we have and combined them into one where we couldn't be wrong on either one of the two on the read. So this is actually going to be a midline outside zone, which is pretty cool. Probably one of the better things that we've come up with in regards to creativity here. We're going to run outside zone, but we're going to combine that with our midline zone read on this nose guard. So the outside zone concept is going to be carried by all these guys on the right-hand side, while the midline zone read then cuts us off at the center. And the center is going to climb to that middle backer, and then the backside left guard and left tackle are both going to fan out to that 4-eye and then that hanger guy there. So it really ends up being a great play, and this is kind of one of those things, if you remember a couple of days ago, we talked about the ISO play against Center Grove that in eval and on paper looked fantastic, but in practice was just in practice it was great, but in the game it was terrible just because we couldn't block those guys effectively enough to make it any good, and they were giving us too many different fronts. This is one of those opposite moments where, boy, this play became everything we wanted and more. It looked really, really good in practice that week. I'd even made the remark a couple of times as you and I were on the sideline, and like this may be the best play we have for the whole week, and it ended up being that. So here we are on the first play. Again, you're going to see us in this formation. For those of you that have been watching, we ran this formation quite a bit in 18, and then it was just something where we just didn't need it very much in 19, but we always kept it in our back pocket and started to practice it as the season went on, knowing that it's a good formation for us. We get our two big tight ends, Cade and Maxon, on the field, and then we get our two speed guys on the opposite side with Riker and Blake. The reason that we do this in this game so much, because you're going to see that, and to the average fan, you may not notice it, but some of those football guys out there, you're going to notice that they haven't run this formation yet on the film I've seen. Why are they doing it now? So the one thing about, to kind of put a couple thoughts together here from the last couple of days, I guess, to just build on that as I go through this here. The one thing about a lot of these great teams, and I think we fall into this as well, so we try to avoid it as much as possible on defense. Like I said, everybody has tendencies, and everybody has built-in checks to what an offense can do to you. If a team goes empty, every good defensive coordinator is going to have a plan for empty, whether you think they're going to run it or not. Even if you don't see it on film, you've talked to your kids before or planned before about, if teams run empty, guys, this is what we do. So when we studied film, this was a formation that when I broke everything down, they seemed to line up the same way pretty much every time. There was only about one variable where it was different. And again, they're really well coached. So when you would come out and spread, or let's say a team came out in pro or whatever it was, they would give you so many different coverages, styles, and fronts that honestly, we couldn't teach our kids those things in a week. It's not possible. We don't have enough time. And so when I broke everything down, I'm thinking, okay, there's no way that I can get us to be efficient enough on offense, as good and smart as our players are. There's no way that I can get us prepared for all these different looks they're going to do against spread stuff. And it really then put the ball in their court to control our offense if I did that. So when I talked to the kids, decided, guys, look, we're going to stay really, really heavily in a couple formations where they seem like they don't see them very often, but their coaches are good enough coaches that they know how to line up to these things in the event they see them. And so I said they probably have an auto check to these particular situations where they'll line up almost the same way every single time. And this was one of the formations that we felt like they were consistent in. And so for us, this was our comfort zone for the game. We got kind of the front we wanted. We got the adjustment we wanted. They line up one of the two ways that we practiced and felt like they were going to line up. And again, this is about consistency, and it ends up being great for us. It's a really simple game plan, but oftentimes simple is what wins. And the kids did a great job executing. So anyway, that's a lot, but there's a lot that had to go into this game. So this is our first play. This is our outside zone midline read, and we get some really nice blocks up front. We get the edge pinned in, and Charlie wins the one-on-one battle, and we rip off an absolutely massive run here on the first play of the night.
There's Shiloh running him down. That's something that doesn't happen to Charlie a lot, which I think gives you an idea exactly how talented that kid is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, without him, that's a touchdown. I mean, that's 6 points on the first play of the night without him, a kid that's that caliber back there. I can't believe. I mean, he's going to go to Penn. He chose the Ivy League because as coaches, I was talking to them. Apparently, he's an absolutely wonderful student. So he's going to go to Penn, and boy, is the Ivy League going to hate watching that dude for the next 4 years of his career up there playing against Penn. That kid he's a difference maker. So we literally come back with literally the exact same play. And actually this is a touchdown as well. This is a great play by this corner here. Really tough kid. I'm going to tell you what, it's honestly sad to watch this right now. I talked to their coaches last week. Unfortunately, number 2 that makes this play right here, who's really a good, and I mean, you can tell he comes up in the hole and squares Charlie up right in the thighs on this play and makes a tremendous player. This is 6 points. Unfortunately, that young man passed away last week to unnecessary violence and lost his life. But what a shame. I mean, obviously I only know him as a football player, but boy, is that kid tough and full of grit, and what a talented young man. I talked to Coach Barth, who's their D coordinator, a little bit, and just said the kid was, from a tough environment, a tough neighborhood, but just a wonderful, wonderful young man and a tremendous leader for them. Was going to be a senior this upcoming year, and it's just a shame. I mean, what an awful situation for a young man to lose his life like that. And heart goes out to the Cathedral community. I've gone through that as a coach before, and it's terrible, but this actually might be worse watching that kid play and know that he's no longer with us. So our thoughts go out to those guys, but everything their coaches have said, he's just a wonderful young person, and obviously I've got a lot of respect for him. I only know him as a player, but tough to see that on film right now, knowing obviously that he passed away last week. So anyway, it's just a shame.
I had a great conversation with him in the handshake line, and I don't know. I doubt anybody knows that I do this, but at the end of every game, whether we win or we lose, I always go try to find one kid on the other team that honestly just impresses me, and
yeah, I do.
Just kind of
the same thing.
But
the same. Yeah.
My thing though about it is I always want to grab a kid that doesn't always get the recognition or get the headlines. You know what I mean? And show a kid how much I appreciate him as a player and the character that he shows. So, I'll give you a couple of examples. So like Franklin Community, we play him in the section. The quarterback's really good, got the really good receiver, running back gets tons of headlines. I went and I grabbed that D lineman 93 and I said, hey man, listen, I know nobody ever talks about you. You're a great player.
Yeah. Yep.
Or somebody like that. In the Valparaiso game, I went and grabbed the middle linebacker who'd been hurt the whole year and told him how much I appreciated how good of a player he was and stuff like that. So I went and I grabbed Mario. And I said, look, man, I know nobody ever talks about you, but I'm so impressed with you as a player. I can tell you're a really high character kid. I said, be really proud of the way you played. So I was a little bit disappointed, more than a little bit disappointed. I was pretty broken up about it when I heard last week. Really good kid, really high character kid, really good player. And like you said, it's really, really disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one other thing I want to talk about here while we're here is a change we made up front in this game. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, well, you haven't seen him play at that position yet. So what you'll notice here is at left tackle, and this is something that I know I've talked about a lot, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, coach, my kids care about our team too, but over the years we have had a couple really special moments that I am extremely proud to be the head coach, where our kids don't question because they fully understand that the mission is to make the team the best the team can be and to win a football game. So Jacob, who currently is number 55 at right guard, has been our starting left tackle for the better part of 2 years. This was his third year. He started for us at left tackle since he was a sophomore. In the Center Grove game that we watched a few days ago, late in the fourth quarter, he partially tore his ACL and got a bone bruise that went from the bottom of his femur through his knee to the top of his lower leg. And it didn't end the season. They thought they could rehab it. It would take about 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks maybe. I was a little bit less than that to probably get him back into playing shape. And, they were going to do some pretty aggressive rehab with him and put him in the pool and all that stuff like that. And we would be able to salvage his season, thankfully. And when that happened, my thought, and then talking to Coach Buchanan, we felt like our best option at that point to continue to win football games was to take Matt Brown, who is a really good tight end and is quite frankly an FBS caliber tight end, I think at the MAC level for sure, and had been starting at tight end for us since he was a sophomore and having a good year again. And he also plays defensive end for us, but we felt like the next best choice to try to create depth at that position and create, quality at that position was to move Matt to left tackle. And, I explained the whole thing to Matt, and I talked to him about the potentials of recruiting and the fact that he's going to be a defensive end tight end prospect, but we're not going to have any tight end film for him. And he didn't bat an eye. I mean, he just said, Coach, I'll do whatever you want me to do. That's fine. And I said, this means, bud, that the number 70 something or 60 something or 50, it's going on and it ain't coming off, and he kind of laughed. He said, yeah, I know. He said, can I please at least just pick my number so I get one that I like? He just didn't want some hideous 50s number. So that's all he cared about. He just wanted to put a number on that he actually thought would look good on him. So he ends up picking 79, and you're going to see him playing left tackle. He's been playing left tackle since week 3, and we're now in week 13 here at this point. So the other half of that story then is to flip back to Jacob. So Jacob now is at right guard. Matt had played very well at left tackle and had gotten better each week at learning kind of the ins and outs of offensive line play, obviously. And so Jacob rehabbed. We held him out longer than we wanted to because it just wasn't necessary. So we kind of gave him a couple extra weeks of rehab in there. And then we brought him back, I believe, for the Newcastle game.
No, it was Delta, wasn't it? Wasn't Delta his first game back?
I think he came back for Newcastle and played, and then a little bit. And then Delta, it was, let's see, I think the second quarter. We're playing pretty well. Jacob's playing really well. He really took well to guard, which was great for us because he's a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier than Matt, and gave us a much better presence on the inside three because he's about 260 pounds or so, whereas Matt was only about 230-ish, maybe 225, 230 at the time. So we're playing Delta, and I look out there and Jacob's on the ground. And I'm like, oh, please no. Like, please do not. I mean, this kid just came back. He really was playing, honestly, maybe the game of his career against them. We were running the ball behind him religiously. So I go out there, and he's laying on the ground. And kind of a funny story that I think, again, the average fan would never know and gets lost in a lot of all this stuff. I go out there, and I look down at Jacob, and I said, hey, man. I said, how's it going? He goes, Coach, I'm so mad right now. I'm so pissed. I said, bud, it's okay. I said, if you're injured, we're going to figure it out. We're going to get through it. You're going to be fine. He goes, I don't care about that. He said, I think I might have just torn my other ACL. He said, I know that. He said, I'm having the game of my life right now. He said, I'm about to beat Kyle I'm about to beat Kyle for the O-line belt. I've got 7 knockdowns. This was my chance. I'm playing the best game of my career, and now I can't finish it, and Kyle's going to win the belt again, and all I've ever wanted to do was beat him for the O-line belt for the week. And I'm like, that's what you're thinking about? He goes, well, yeah, I just want to win. I want to win it, and now I can't because I'm hurt. I'm like, man, okay, well, and they're doing the test on his knee while he's talking about this stuff, and I said, let's get you up off the ground. Let's get you over to the sideline. So I pick him up and kind of walk off the field with him, and him and I are kind of talking. But it was kind of one of those things in that moment where, man, he was just so calm and relaxed. And I'm sitting there in my own head, and I'm panicking like, my God, I feel sick to my stomach for this kid. He just lost his senior season for a second time this year. He worked his tail off to rehab, and 2 weeks later he's down again. Like, it's sickening, and then he lifts my spirits up. And I kind of was like, well, I'll go with it. And we got to the sideline. As I was walking him, I remember I looked back over at Doc Estes, and I kind of gave him the look to give me the signal of yes or no. And he kind of shook his head again. And so I kind of got really deflated about it, obviously, as I just lost a senior and a great player, because you just feel terrible for the kid. And they went over and did more of the analysis on the sidelines with him. And Doc Estes came back over and just tapped me on the shoulder at kind of a down point. And he shook his head and he said, I'm pretty sure this one's all the way gone. He's done. So I felt awful about that, obviously. So fast forward, he actually did the exact same thing to the other knee that he had done to the first knee. Mm-hmm. Exact same tear, exact same bone bruising, maybe a little bit lesser degree on the tear, but pretty much the exact same type of tear to the ACL. So doctors kind of analyzed it and said, okay, you can probably come back from this one to play in 3 to maybe 4 weeks if it heals the right way and you rehab it aggressively. So to his credit, he rehabbed for hours a day. And that was kind of a big rallying cry for our kids, especially to our seniors. We knew that if we could get through the sectional championship and get to the regional game, that we would get Jacob back.
Yep.
And boy, was that motivational for our kids and our seniors, man. I tell you what, when we won that sectional game, I think one of the biggest reliefs for everybody was that we bought Jacob another opportunity to play the game of football for this program after he'd sacrificed so much for it. And on top of that, to be honest, we probably can't win a state championship without him. He ended up being so good for us at guard. The 5 linemen then that we played up front together really had a good sync among them. And so it was so big. I'm so proud of that kid for everything he'd done for the program, but the resilience and resolve of that year, that's something I'll never forget. So, a long story to explain that, but I tend to be long-winded on things that I'm extremely proud of, and that is certainly one of them.
So, a big emotional lift for our kids, but just in terms of X's and O's, this is a huge boost for us to get him back and to get him plugged in here against a really, really good defensive front and defensive box structure. It helps us a ton in this game. Good smart kid is able to identify a lot of these different looks and stuff, and really played a really good game here. So we're inside the 10 here on drive one. Third and short, third and medium, 3rd and 4 here.
Yeah, this is a really nice job here. Just running inside zone, just pushing the pile and just plowing forward here. And once we get down to this scenario, again, we stay in this formation here because we're getting what we thought we were going to get, and we're just going to keep pounding away. And that's really all this drive is we're just going to keep letting the big boy pound away at him and eventually push one in. There's not much science to this here. We're going to go all heavy sets and let the offensive line do their job and let Charlie do his job, and we finish it off here with a really quick touchdown on the opening drive. Gives our kids a bunch of momentum and confidence, and unbelievably, and there's a lot that goes into this too, but this is the only touchdown of the first half for us here.
Yep.
And there's a lot of missed opportunity and some bad luck that happens to us here, but opening drive touchdown, then we don't score again.
Other thing I'll note was a big boost for us was we had kind of started to work Alex Kropp back in from his quad injury, over 5 or 6 weeks. And those quad injuries can be tricky, and especially in cold weather. And we really try to take it slow with him. And I know he was so happy to be back. And another situation, he went down the week of our scrimmage, and he really wanted to get back and really wanted to be, a contributor, and didn't want to miss his whole senior season. And we kind of tried to work him back as slowly as we could, and hope to have him at full strength kind of for this final push. And this was the first game that we really kind of took all those restrictions away and just let him go kick and kind of go get back to full 100%, taking all the kickoffs, taking all the extra points. So really good to have him back, a great weapon for us over the years. And if I'm honest, I think what you saw from him down the stretch, in the playoffs with a really fresh, healthy leg made a huge difference for us. I mean, it really did.
Yeah, he'd been hurt most of the year and then had a lot of restrictions on, and then slowly each week, like one of those restrictions got pulled away, and he learned how to take care of his leg a little bit better through, paying attention to a routine and stuff. And, he had a really nice playoff run.
Well, we about quintuple gap ourselves over here. We got about 8 guys on that side of the hash, and they squeaked one out on us here. It's job by Luke Canfield to come in and make that tackle. So here they come offensively, and you talked about their defense, but quickly here, their offense poses a lot of problems for people. There's a lot to look at. They do a ton of stuff. They run I won't say that. They run a ton of formations, but it's really only to do 4 or 5 things.
Yeah, they're very similar to us in that regard. They give you a lot of window dressing and then run the exact same play, and they kill you with defenses overthinking stuff. So they had a couple plays that we thought were going to give us a lot of trouble. One of them really hurts us a lot, and it's something that we had struggled with all week long. It's essentially their power read play, and they run it from spread, and they use the jet back to do it. They also run it from just your standard gun and use the running back and then execute it. Their offense, this was one of the first time since Center Grove, and that's why playing a team like Center Grove is so good for us, is their offensive line was monstrous. I think their center was 280 something. Both tackles were over 6'4", 6'5", and over 300 pounds. The one guard was 270 something. The other guard was a little bit smaller. He was like a 225 guy, but they had a lot of speed on the perimeter, and some really, really talented players out there. I think one of the biggest and probably the most underestimated aspects of an offense, and what I think has made our offense so good, probably my biggest concern was someone that I think a lot of teams overlooked when they played them, because he just killed them, and he hurts us a couple times too. But their tight end and the way they use their tight ends is a major problem. First of all, he's a freshman, and he's unbelievably talented. I mean, that kid is going to be a major Division I prospect. I mean, he's 6'4", 225 already as a freshman, and that kid can flat out play the game. The other tight end that they had when they went into their heavy packages was about the exact same size, just older. So those two big tight ends to me were a huge problem. One, because they're such big kids. It's like having another offensive lineman in the blocking game. And they're both huge mismatch weapons in the passing game. So I think the one thing that we felt like in this game, as far as what we talked to the kids about, is their quarterback was really talented in regards to his legs and his ability to throw the ball down the field. We had charted them for a significant amount of explosive plays. I mean, you can check their stat sheets out and stuff like that. They had, I think in every single game they played, they had a passing touchdown of over 40 yards. And in most of those games, they were over 60 or 70. I mean, they could really throw the deep ball and spread your team vertically, and that's a big, big problem. So our whole goal was to try to keep them in front of us, and we felt like the quarterback had been really mistake-prone, and so we wanted to give the illusion of a lot of different things. We wanted to move around a lot. It was supposed to slow their RPO game down and hopefully confuse his reads some and make him choke the ball down. You know, and really it sounds a little bit wild here, but we kind of broke everything down and we wanted to play the math game. His completion percent was extremely low. He could hit a deep ball exceptionally well, but the mid-range and short game stuff is where he had struggled. So, you know, we knew we were going to have to defend a lot of vertical stuff, but the goal here was to play away from them, give them throws that are 8 to 10 yards and essentially make him complete those, and make them essentially beat us with accuracy and efficiency. And you're going to see us, we play a couple jump balls really well. We lose a jump ball here in a second in blown coverage and don't play it right. But for the most part, for the entirety of the game, we execute really well and make them throw the ball short and essentially beat us with volume efficiency. And I didn't think they could do that. I was super, super concerned about his legs and his ability to run the ball in their scheme. And that power read play had given us a lot of trouble.
This is it.
Yeah. And we don't defend it very well until later on. But again, it's hard to prepare for this stuff when you know, I mean, no teams really have a scout team quarterback that's like this kid. I mean, he ended up walking on at a Division I school, I think maybe. Who's got a scout team player that does that? So it's hard to replicate this kid throughout the week of practice and his speed and everything. So yeah, go ahead.
I want to talk a little bit more about the movement, and kind of watch our three linebackers here: Richie, Avon, Hunter, and then Cade and Max, and we call our Dragon and Buck our alley players. But kind of watch what they do pre-snap here, and how many different options that we show, just to kind of try to dirty the picture a little bit. And you know, they end up calling a run play here. So, you know, in this particular instance, it's not necessarily wasted, but you know, we're trying to cloud up his pass reads a little bit, and who's going to be where and who's going to do what. And I kind of want the average fan that's watching this to kind of pay attention to that. Not only here, but when you see us come back out in the field in 2020, I think that's something that our kids do really well. So we get him a 3rd and short here.
Yeah, here's another empty package with that big tight end attached, and there it is with the jet. It's a hard play to stop in general. I mean, we used to run this play quite a bit. We just haven't had maybe the personnel to do it, but this is difficult, especially when you got that big tight end in there down blocking and everything. This is It's tough. It's tough to deal with. That's for sure.
They're getting a little tight bunch, kind of a quads look. They motion to, this is a formation that we call kind of rip stack, where there's three guys out here and they're going to stack the inside too. We don't run it quite that way, but they're going to motion the tailback out to motion the quads.
Our kids do a really good job of adjusting to that. It's good communication.
Mm-hmm.
We'd practice that stuff. I mean, they'd shown so many formations. We had a lot of stuff built in for those scenarios. So our kids did a good job. You see them move real quick and respond. Here's one of the deep balls. We just blow a coverage here, and he misses this one again. It was kind of an accuracy thing, but Riker doesn't get his hands on this guy, and he does the shuffle bell technique that he likes, but he lets this guy run. If you watch the top of the screen here on this, he gives that guy a clean release around him instead of putting his hands on him to slow him down to help Brody out in this. We're actually playing cover two here, or a version of two on that side, not straight up cover two, but it's a version of cover two that we play to this trips look here. And he's got to put hands on that guy. He gives him a free shot at the numbers and puts Brody in a bad spot. Thankfully they missed this one, but this is the stuff they've done to people. So we correct this immediately when they come to the sideline, but a lot of teams don't live to see another day on those type of things. So they come back with another big shot, home run ball here that we bat down. And this was kind of one of the things that is going to be, I guess, kind of a main. Then we lose this one. We just flat out lose the ball in the air. It isn't that we played poorly. And I told the kids this in the locker room. The first half of this game felt like we couldn't catch a break.
Yep.
I mean, and you're going to see it go. You can just go ahead and keep playing the tape here. You don't got to keep replaying it. But, I mean, that right there was 3rd and 10. We're exactly where we want them to be. They ran one of the route combinations that we had practiced all week and had been spectacular at. We hit the quarterback with two people. He throws a jump ball that's thrown behind our guy's pressure, and he loses the ball in the air, and they convert a 3rd and forever. We get them in 3rd and long. Here's another one. This is in two of our guys' hands for an interception, and we don't pick it off. I mean, we do a great job defending this boot. Two guys both. Hunter has it in his hands, and then he dropped it, and then it's in Maxon's hands, and he dropped it. I mean, we have so many things in the opening half of this game where even when it was happening, I'm like, are we just snake bitten tonight, or what's going on? I mean, what in the world is going on right now? So they convert that 3rd and long on kind of what's not a great throw and just a misplay. And then we drop an interception twice, and they get points on that drive. And truthfully, that was one thing we'd eval too. Their kicker had not been very accurate all year and really had not kicked with any kind of range. And he pounds a couple right down the pipes, and it's like, what in the world is going on right now? I mean, I'm not saying it's not a, I mean, it felt like, boy, we're just snake bitten. I mean, I
felt a little bit cursed as we kind of got towards the end of the second quarter, and this is something that had never happened.
Yeah.
I mean, after that, this dude couldn't kick touchbacks in August when it's 80 degrees outside.
I was going to say, I think we started him for what, like 2 or 3?
Yeah. And then he absolutely hammers one right down in the corner. I mean, you couldn't lay one down there any better than that. That is down in the corner on the 2-yard line and bounces in.
Yeah.
And it felt like that series of, and the longer this first half goes, the more it mounts. And I think, I think it's hard as a coach to keep some of those frustrations internal and not express that frustration over things that you really can't control. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the real challenges in not expressing that to the kids and keeping the kids focused on the task at hand. It's hard to not be emotional about that.
By the way, to your comment earlier, as you look at the film and stuff, this game was huge, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, especially because we're at the regional level and a lot of teams have already been knocked out. I mean, this is one of the biggest crowds that we've had. There are people standing around. We had to tape the field off to keep people away from the field. There are people standing around the tape, and then behind them even there's a second layer standing behind the fences. That wrapped all the way around the stadium. Our home bleachers, you couldn't find a seat,
Yeah.
and the end zone bleachers, you couldn't find a seat.
So I've never seen anything like this. So this building up here in the upper left is where my office is during the school day. And 7 p.m. kickoff, and these RVs started pulling in at noon and 1 o'clock.
Our fans were the same way. It was wild.
And I'm in here. I mean, it's a school day. It's a work day, and I'm trying to work, and and there's country music out here, and they're firing the grill up and all this stuff, and it is 1 p.m. So that that was kind of a wild part of the environment as well. So here we come, drive 2. First time we see the bunch here to start.
Just trying to gather a little bit of information here and just kind of see, we come out of that one formation just because we had some other stuff obviously that we wanted to do in this game. And so we're just trying to check and see, what they're going to do to a couple of these different formations here. And you can see now we hop right back into the kind of the one that we wanted to really come after for the week. Now this is kind of one of those things, again, if you watch us play develop. So
that's terrible. Sorry.
This was one of the best plays that we thought we had against them to throw the ball from this formation then. So it couldn't just be hey guys, when they do this, they're always running the ball. If you watch us play develop here, if you go ahead and press play, that's what we're trying to accomplish on this in route pause. That official is sitting in the window that Lincoln is about to throw the ball to, where we are wide open. So he's literally, his only read on this was to essentially read that window, and the official walks right into the window and we can't throw it. Mm-hmm. So Lincoln has to choke the ball down and eat it. And he came over and he goes, Coach, the guy stood right in front of Max and I'm like, I know, I saw, I get what, like, I'm not mad at you. I saw exactly, but we have an easy first down completion with our best player with the ball in his hands in wide open space, and the official stands in the window. Like, we can't get a break right now. I mean, it's one of those things where you're right. Like, I do start feeling like what's happening right now. I mean, our kids are actually playing really. That play with Cade on that long pass, Cade played that perfect. The ball was thrown though so far behind because we were hitting their quarterback that he couldn't play the ball, and then they catch it, and it's like, what am I supposed to say to that kid? I mean, that's just awful luck. I mean, it's the way it goes. So we come back with a play that we felt really good about. We like this
play a lot.
And here we go now. And we fall literally 6 inches short of a first down. Mm-hmm. We get a tough.
We like this. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, we call I get a really good play here. We get exactly what we wanted. And then we're 6 inches short of a first down.
This is a play that we like a lot in these long yardage situations, kind of try to run everybody off. This is one that, we get a couple requests for the 2018 Zionsville game, which we're going to do at some point. This was a big part of our plan in that game, was kind of run everybody off, take the top off the defense, get all these guys going vertical, and then just sneak Chuck out here and hit him for a nice, easy throw in the flat, let him turn and run and make one of these littler guys tackle him in space. Now, when you say the littler guys, too, here's the one thing about Cathedral that's really difficult. There aren't any. The way they play their 3-3, see, 44 is wearing a linebacker number. That's because he's actually a linebacker. Their corners, they play a lot of what we talk to it's kind of this, but the way that we teach our guys this, they play a lot of what we call 2 invert, where their bigger guys will be their corners and play the flats so they can be super physical, and that way you can't throw bubbles on them. Because that's a linebacker. And most teams don't have the personnel for this, but they do. So, and then the actual corner, so you can see number 2 here, their actual corner will then play deep half on each side of the field. So we taught the kids that it's essentially what we call a 2 invert. That way they understood, like, conceptually what we were getting, because that's how we teach it. But yeah, that ends up being a little 200-pound linebacker, 205-pound linebacker playing corner, because they've got the personnel to do that type of stuff. So that's what you see. That's an explanation as to
well, coach, you said that guy's a corner. That guy's huge. Well, yeah, because that's what their corners are sometimes. Those linebacker kids actually play the flat as a corner for them a lot.
Fourth and about 9 inches, if I recall correctly here.
Yeah, I mean, we were literally a slightly better spot away from this being a first down.
I remember, and I'll say this, you're pretty aggressive.
Yes, I almost went for it.
Well, and pretty much every time we get in this situation, we were on almost the exact same yard line a year before in the semi-state against Michigan City on our first drive. And I usually want to go for these, even on our own 29-yard line. I'm usually, I'll tell you, I think we should go for it, because if we can't get a foot, we don't deserve to win anyway. But talk about your decision here and why you didn't.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be really honest here. Some of it was things just weren't going our way. I mean, that was part of the process of, like, things aren't going well for us right now. And if we don't get this, I mean, if our running back trips and falls or we have a bad snap, like, I crippled the team essentially. And that was really the thought process here of if we go for this and we don't get it, we're giving their offense, who's very high powered, the ball back right on the fringe of our red zone. And I just did not want to do that. The way the game had been going, it was not something that I thought was the best option at that time. How many times do we convert 4th and 6 inches? Truthfully, I'd say about 97% of the time. Michigan City on the goal line is one of the times I can think of that we didn't get it done, and Valpo on the goal line is one of the times I can think of that we haven't gotten that done. Most of the time, we're going to convert that, but at this stage of the game, still early in the first quarter, really needing to settle in a little bit, I just didn't think it was the best decision for us at the time to go ahead and roll the dice and go for it. I mean, it's not like me. I think some of the kids were even a little bit upset by the fact that we didn't do it, but they understood why. But they have a lot of pride in themselves as well.
Yep.
And but to me, it just wasn't, for what was going on in the situation, the part of the field that we're in here, it just wasn't worth it to me. And Eric's got a great leg that can flip the field. This is actually probably one of his. I'm not sure worst is the bet, but not one of his better punts of the year. Yeah. But they don't get a chance to return it, and that was a big part of our plan this week. Is don't let the two really good athletes in space back there touch the ball. So he does a great job in that regard and puts it out of bounds.
I about came unglued on this one, and it's not easy. Officiating is hard. I get it, and all that stuff. But this ball goes out of bounds at the 38-yard line.
Yeah, this was another one of the like I'm talking about. It just felt like, I mean, they spot this ball almost 5 yards in front of where it landed, and I'm sitting there like, what's going? I actually said in the headset, like, am I wrong or something? Like, what's going on tonight? I mean, it just didn't feel good. There was a really bad vibe going on in this game early that it just didn't seem like we could get out of. It was bizarre. That spot it's blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
And then we end up losing 5 yards off of the spot. And it's like, I'm arguing on the sideline. I actually thought to myself, and I said on the headset, I'm going to walk away and go stand somewhere else, because I'm going to get a penalty. Like, the frustrations had really mounted. There's a huge hole.
Mm-hmm. This little tackle counter. This little tackle counter was one of the plays that one of their favorites from spread. That I honestly really didn't think was quite as good as some of the other stuff that they ran. I mean, this tackle's a really good player. This is Tex, right? Tex is the right tackle.
Yeah.
Really good player. Always good to get some of your best players moving in space, but I didn't think it was one of their better plays, honestly, and they get a big holding penalty here.
This also, by the way, is a penalty. And we don't get this one called either. You physically, so that tackle, you're physically not allowed to throw somebody on the ground like that. That's actually a penalty on screens now, and they do it to two of our guys, and it doesn't get called. You can see they get our nose and Kyle there. That's also I know the slap technique, I get it, but you're actually not allowed to knock guys to the ground on screens like that. It is a penalty because we've gotten it called on us before.
Mm-hmm.
They don't call that one either. There's also another holding penalty that doesn't get called.
The power read play here.
Yeah, my stress level right now is through the roof because things are not going our direction. And again, a lot of it, like you said, is things that are completely almost out of our control. And it's absolutely driving me nuts right now. And some of it's of calls, some of it's just flat out bad luck,
One of my other general complaints in this game was really ambiguous about who's on and who's off, and that's really tough for our kids.
I almost got a 15-yarder for that one too, because I recognized that the first drive, and I said they don't have enough guys in line of scrimmage, and they said no, they checked in, and I said, well, that guy is a yard off of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if he checks in on or not. He's not on the line of scrimmage. That is a penalty. So I said my guys don't know if they're ineligible or eligible now because they're stacked on top of each other, or they're both off the ball, or I said
so
that's absolutely not right. Like they have to be up on the line of scrimmage, and if they're not, then you scoot them up. But they allowed this to happen the whole game, and it messed with us a lot.
Yeah. So this becomes ambiguous because there's a tight end here, and if he's on, that guy can't go downfield. Now, and this is basically tight end trips here, so they can both be off, and that way they're legal. But in some of these, it's really tough to tell. And in some of these situations when there's no tight end, it's like this, and he's on. So, just one of those things our kids have to deal with.
It was another major complaint.
Oh, we got a kill shot right there that we miss.
This is, again, one of those things I'm talking about. We've got them in 3rd and 6 and miss a surefire sack and get them to 4th and 2. We should have them off the field, and then we miss it, and then they convert by a yard. I mean, one of the most unfortunate first quarters I think that we have ever played. It was certainly one to forget, that's for sure. And I'm glad that we can forget about it.
Scramble, you talk about the threat with his legs, a little rollout. They love this boot stuff. They run a ton of it.
We practiced all week long and had struggled early in the week, but got a lot better as the week went on. That's just a really good job here. I mean, they had a nice boot play. It's a good part of their offense. And, this is something we'd worked on a tremendous amount, that good hard play action from those guys up front, those guards, and just stuck our linebackers in just a little bit too deep, and they get this guy out, and it's a good play. It's a good, solid play. Another unbalanced set here. Second and 2 or 3 is really where they thrive here.
And they love to do this. This is something they did a lot. So their best player, Cam Jordan, went out, got hurt in the Center Grove game, and missed the rest of the year. He's a Division I baseball player, committed to he's a center fielder and a really good one. He's going to Louisville to play baseball, which gives you an idea kind of the talent that he has and the speed that he has. So a lot of this stuff that they did, they love to pitch this ball. When this was him, they would pitch this ball and kind of let him just go do this. And they love to get in that unbalanced set to be able to take him off the ball and motion him. And they didn't do quite as much of that after he went out. But, still something you got to be cognizant of.
We get pass interference on this one. I mean, this is exactly how I coach this to be done by Maxon. Right hand around the hip, left hand through the guy's right hand on the hip, left hand reaches around, and you slide through that guy's hands, and we get a PI call and give him 15 yards. And it's like, at this point, I don't even know how to tell our players to play anymore. I mean, we're really struggling as far as just some of the bad luck. I can't really call it anything else. Bad luck. And then we don't execute. Here's power read again. They do a really nice job. It's a good play. It's a tough play to stop. So, yeah, I mean, they pretty much marched the ball right down the field via our assistants with missed tackles and bad spots and bad penalties and some good play by them sprinkled in there, and we go down 10-7. You know, some of the thought right now, too, is, my God, we have got to get out of this half.
Yeah,
Like,
just get to the locker room. I remember having that conversation.
I was going to say, I think I said this on the headset, like, guys, look, we have got to just do some damage control, get these kids into the locker room so I can talk to them and kind of, honest to God, just kind of build them back up again a little bit. We've got to get out of this half right now and just push the reset button on this football game, essentially.
This is what we expected to happen. You know, we talked about that touchback that kid kicked earlier. This is what we thought would happen, and we felt really good about it. We miss a block in there, but even then, I mean, we're still going to start at the 31 here, which is you know, our goal is the 40. Our average was like the 38 this year, which is just an incredible number. You know, we really did well on this team this year, but their size was a problem for us. You know, they put some of the best dudes out there. There's Mario. There's Shiloh that never, ever, ever did not take one rep in all the film that we had. Never seen them be on their kickoff team, and we show up and they've got the dudes out there. And, you know,
I think this is one of the great things about my general philosophy as well, but then, well, I guess it's somewhat that you don't really have a choice because I've said this is how things are going to be, but it's something that you've embraced and brought a lot of the pride into the kids with is our best players play special teams and our hardest workers can find ways onto special teams. And it's become a badge of honor, and what that's created as a byproduct is when other teams turn the film on and see our all-state players and all of our starters and then a couple kids that are sprinkled in that are just special teams warriors are all out there, you have to match that caliber or we're going to rip you to shreds on special teams. So what the byproduct is a lot of these teams in a couple of days, you got two choices. You leave it as it is and you give us the special teams game, which is a phase of the game that you probably can't afford to surrender, or you make your players in a couple days buy into the fact that they're all going to have to start playing special teams now if we're going to be successful against New Pal. And I think that has been great because those guys usually don't play special teams, and some of them aren't willing to play special teams. But it's definitely been a byproduct of all of a sudden, you know, we go out there for a game and it's like, well, there's 4 starters on kickoff now, and they never do that.
And I think that helps too because you're emptying those kids' tanks in a way that they're not used to that happening.
Sure. Yeah.
And,
exactly.
You know, and I'll say this, I think in a course of a game, an extra 10 or 12 snaps, I think makes a huge difference.
Yep. Absolutely.
And 10 or 12, you know, kickoff, kick returns, you know, punt returns, punts, all that stuff. I think that makes a big difference. So I want to talk about this play a little bit here because, you know, you talk a lot about this is RPO, right? If I recall correctly. Yeah. So talk a little bit about, you know, I think your reputation on Twitter a little bit is to really hammer some of these RPO guys.
Well, I only do when it's stupid.
Right, and not against RPO as a general philosophy because I think there's a place for it. And your clinic talk that you give on RPOs, I think is my favorite one that you do because you explain how we do it and how we implement it and why we only do a very small number of them and we only do them situationally. Yeah. So talk a little bit about this as an RPO and for our fans, you know, the non-coaches, RPO's run pass option. You hear it on Sunday all the time. All these guys throw this word around, this buzzword around.
And use it incorrectly.
So in a true sense, walk me through this RPO.
So RPO, essentially the letters stand for run pass option. So on this particular play, the quarterback has a decision to give the ball off on the handoff for the run part, and based upon the read, he can pull it and then throw it if he so chooses to. Now, if you watch us play normally, the zone read, is just a read option or a run option.
Mm-hmm.
It's a run or a run. This one is going to be a run or a pass. So, yeah, I mean, here's the thing about RPOs. I think they've certainly helped us. We don't do them a ton. It has to be based around your quarterback and what he can mentally handle and what his talent level is. Some years we've done more, some years we've done less, some years we've done none. What drives me crazy online are these people who just get out a pen and paper or get on a program and draw lines all over a paper, and then they want to sell it to you for, 2 easy installments of $199.99. Look, if you're going to pay people for that, you want to pay me for that, I'll get up every morning, get a notepad out, and I'll draw all kinds of lines on a paper. And you can have it, and none of them are going to probably work. But it'll be a lot of cool route combinations that you can use as RPOs and say that you're some wizard and you're not. The big thing about them is that drives me crazy with the internet people. and I'm not saying that I'm incredible or great or anything like that, but like I've mentioned many times before, as an offensive coordinator, your job is to move the ball and score points and protect the ball in doing all those things and put your team in a position to win football games. As a head coach, beyond that, my overarching job is to win. I have done a lot of research on this. I bet about 80% of these RPO wizards out there that are on Twitter hyping themselves up, if you actually go and look at what their offenses accomplish and what their teams accomplish, you would never buy what they're selling to you. Their offenses are genuinely atrocious. The film they use is from when they're behind over 40 points and beating the JV kids, for touchdowns. Their team records are under 500 consistently, but they've got tons of clinic film because they run a bunch of one-offs to sell packages in the offseason of all their RPOs. And the reality of the situation is they draw those things up in advantageous scenarios so that the RPO looks great, like it's going to work. All any team has to do to them is play man-to-man, and they're useless. I mean, that's the real secret. The whole thing is absurd, and it's gotten so out of control, and so many people are suckering people into buying stuff when they're not even successful with it themselves. They're just selling you lines on a paper, and that's frustrating to me. And I would much rather be a 3-time state champion and have run minimal RPOs than be bouncing around from school to school or taking programs and running them into the ground so I can build up clinic film to sell to people for a couple $100 in off season. So anyway, that rant over with now. This play is essentially a bubble off of our inside zone stuff here. It's a pretty simple RPO, but it is nonetheless. It's one of the easiest you can probably run. We felt like in their spread, like I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of different scenarios that they could provide to us. And through studying the tape, we had essentially narrowed it down to one read for this play, where if this player were in this position, we could give the ball on the run. If this player were in this position, though, then we're going to put the ball in the belly and we're going to throw the bubble outside because they can't defend it with both. And Lincoln does a great job here. We're kind of reading the structure of that alley linebacker. They move all over the place. You can see him. He's walked up here.
If he's here, we're going to give this.
Yeah, right. If he walks out, then we're going to give that ball because they can't play the 3-over-3 up top, in our opinion. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, honestly, it's just a cheap 10 yards. And that's all it is. It's just a cheap 10 yards, and we execute it really, really well. So, it's a good play. And it's simple. And we come right back to the bread and butter here. Okay, there's our outside zone midline read. Really nice job. That guy plays up the field, so we give the ball. We've got it blocked up both ways really well here, actually. And again, that young man, number 2, Mario, comes up and makes a honest to God, another touchdown saving play. I mean, again, like that last play could have been a touchdown against 99% of the corners that we would ever go against. That's 6 points. And he comes up and ankle bites us and gets us. So, yeah, I mean, what a great player. It's so unfortunate, but so this is bad. We eat a sack here, but the good news about that play is it got me the information I needed to call this play later in the second half. They played that exactly what we thought. If you go back real quick, you're going to see up top. See how Blake up top gets essentially a free run at the hole shot right there? That's really what I wanted. This is essentially verts out of that lion formation. That's what we call it. And this hole shot is what we're going to talk to Lincoln about. He's getting ready to throw it and just gets way too much pressure from the big boy in the middle. But the good part about that is that information we gathered and Lincoln's confidence in wanting to trigger that ball gets us a huge play in the second half, and he throws a strike to Eric on that hole shot.
Yep. Kind of the right after they missed the field goal to potentially go up, what was it, 13-7?
Yes, yeah.
They missed that field goal, and that's like the second or third play after that. I think that's really neat. You know, I think that's a really neat perspective that you give to people, that this planted that seed. And I remember you and I talked about that.
Obviously not a great play for us in the time, but the information we get and the ability to talk to our quarterback about it. So when he comes over and I ask him, hey, where were you trying to throw that? And he says, I was trying to, and we practiced this. You can see them roll to that 2 invert. He said, I was trying to throw the whole shot to Blake. Okay, perfect. It's there. Like, we know it's there. You know it's there. Okay, we're going to keep that in the back pocket. So, again, the payoff on that is we've got smart kids. I mean, that's Lincoln taking the coaching from Coach Large and myself throughout the week, knowing where he wants the ball to go, but we just don't get to trigger it. Now we get a face mask penalty.
This is another little one-hitter that we had.
Yeah, this is unfortunate too.
For the week, and you know, run everybody off, try to sneak Chuck in behind a little wheel route here, and
we've got it too, but Lincoln gets face masked. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, this is kind of, I mean, you know, you just roll through this series here and keep going, but this is one of those, I mean, you're playing against a really good defense. It's not always going to be great. This was not a good choice.
No.
So this is one we thought we were going to have open throughout the week. This was one of those kind of on the paper home run balls, and you can see here the quality of their players. This guy that plays this kind of 2 invert up top, he comes off the numbers. We're trying to split the 2 high safeties on this. He comes off the numbers and plays the ball in the middle of the field, which, again, let's be real. Most high school kids aren't going to do that. We actually the plan was to beat Shiloh over his head on this and drop that whole shot in between their cover 2 guys, which we do. I mean, we're over his head. We beat him. The problem is
he's supposed to be there.
Yeah, the problem is that corner, most corners can't come off the numbers and play the middle of the field. Well, that kid did. So, again, we get what we want. We've got a wide open guy. Lincoln lays the ball up. It'll be right in Brody's hands. We actually beat Shiloh because he's pretty aggressive. We were going to kind of come after that, and their corner makes an unbelievable play and shuts down a touchdown. I mean, I just want to get to halftime and get in the locker room and you know, go cry in my office or something about, oh, woe is me, our luck is terrible. But to their credit, their kids are really good players and really well coached too. They're going to make plays.
So fourth and 3 here, and we fall down.
Yeah. So we get a 4th and 3, and we've got a really nice hole. You can see develop on the left-hand side right there, and we trip. Halftime can't come soon enough. So this is obviously a big defensive stand for us here. We can't give up points, and we don't. But our kids do a really nice job. again, those slow intermediate throws here. He throws this one down low into the ground. We almost get our hands on it. A little bit of a curl scenario again, kind of some accuracy problems in that mid-range game. So they make
so we get off the field.
It's not always one-sided. They've made plenty of mistakes on their side as well, and I'm sure a lot of things they'd like to have back. But boy, have we just had a slew of things not quite bounce our way here, and it's about to get worse, by the way.
So I want to talk really quickly about the punt here. I realize we've gone really long today, but I do want to talk about this and some of the things that we talk about in terms of making sure we've got all the eligible guys covered up. They punt from unbalanced here. This guy is covered by him, so he's not eligible. But that means that the left tackle is eligible, so we have to account for him. So he's eligible. He's eligible. Get on there. And him. This is the backup quarterback too. So there's some concern there about, what they've done. They had run a fake earlier in the year where they had kind of run this little go route here, and they hit a big conversion. So, while I wanted to come after it, and we're kind of lined up here with some of our guys to do that, we've also, I told Hunter 9 times during the week, like, you have him. He belongs to you. I don't care where he goes. I don't care what he does. He belongs to you. You have to cover him. I told Avon the same thing about this guy. You have him. You go wherever he goes, period. So we do come after it, not as much as we do some others. We catch a huge break here because this is not good.
Their punter struggled all year as well.
Yeah.
He had really had a tough year. His average that we could find online on the Max Prep stuff, he had really had a tough go at getting good punts.
So we come back here and really pretty good field position after a nice 3 and out to try one more chance to come down and get points here.
Again, we get them one-on-one, and that, number 2 makes a great play again. Same thing. We get exactly what we want. We're one-on-one in the hole, and he just makes a nice tackle. So we're into a little bit more of our heavy situations here with that attached tight end nub into the boundary, which is a formation I like a lot. We kind of ran it late in the year then because I wanted to make sure that we could be more efficient at it. So this is a good formation for us. I like this a lot. It gives defenses troubles for a lot of different reasons. So just going to go inside zone again here. We've got a little bit of time on the clock trying to get the ball down. Lincoln makes a nice pull. It isn't like we're not operating well. The kids are actually playing pretty good football. This is the outside zone midline read where we get the pull. And yep. Lincoln rips this off for a massive chunk of yards. Now the nose guard chases Charlie. Lincoln pulls it, and he rips off 10 for a first down. The thing is, we're playing solid football. It's just like, good. Can we just get something? Get a little something to go our direction here.
Here's another RPO we had in for the week.
This is our ISO play.
Yeah, talk about this in the Center Grove game. Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing here with this look. But
now, see the extra guy on the edge here that's standing there is the one that we were going to read. That was kind of our breakdown for this. If he came up there, then we're going to throw the bubble. If he walked out wide, then we're going to give the ISO. They couldn't cover both based on how they were going to line up, in our opinion. So, yeah.
This scared me a little bit. I remember the conversation when this play started to develop was, it's 2nd and 6 inches. We don't need to get cute with it. We wouldn't be mad if he gave this regardless of what the read was, and just let us get a foot, But I'm going to tell you, this is a big-time throw from the kid here.
Yeah.
This is not an easy throw, and this is a rope from the opposite hash.
I talked to a lot of those guys at clinics about if you're going to do RPOs, your quarterback better be smart and he better have some arm talent, and that's again where I think a lot of those scam artists and stuff fall way short is they don't care what they've got. They're trying to sell film, and their quarterback, most of them, they can't throw these type things.
There's the midline again.
Yeah. Another good run. Again, we're doing fine. We're playing solid football here. Another
Straight
good run
inside
for
zone
us.
there.
Yeah, I mean, another good run. We're moving the ball. It's effective. Yeah, I mean, you're not just going to chunk these guys. Go ahead and keep
Hmm.
going. Yeah, I mean, you're not just going to pop, 10 off at a time. So we get ourselves in a field goal scenario here, and well, as bad luck would have it, this actually is something. This is Crop's range. I mean, I remember when he
Hmm.
came back and was healthy. Boy, he was hitting field goals in practice from 50 plus, and in contrast to everything we've talked about previously, it didn't matter what hash he was on.
No.
He was absolutely just pure as pure could be. And I think the one in practice he hit was from like 52.
Yep. Well,
And
now the thing is, I mean, this is from 38,
yeah, and this
30,
is his.
yeah,
I mean,
technically,
this is his
legally
sweet
38.
spot. Yeah, I mean, you can see
And
that
look
that
how
ball.
high.
Yeah, that ball's good from 50. I mean,
Yep.
he had been absolutely stroking his field goals and PATs, and this ball literally hits the inside of the near upright and bounces back out. I mean, you can literally see it hit the inside of the upright right there and
Hmm.
then kick backwards and out. I mean, it is as bad of luck as you can get. I'd have almost rather at this point, I'd have rather have him just missed it because it hitting the post is such a deflating sound and feeling for everybody. Like
Hmm.
that's where I started to get a little bit concerned about, like, oh my God, how much is this going to, potentially tank our kids' psyche? We have a really good stand and a really good drive. We get a field goal shot and it literally just doinks the post. I mean, it's not going well. It is not going well right now. I mean, this is an absolute cannon blast off of his foot, and we hit the upright.
You have a tendency when you try to overkick, you have a tendency to pull that kicking leg across your hip a little bit. See how that foot is kind of pulled this way a little bit, and you have a tendency on those longer kicks where because you do that, the draw, the right to left curve of the kick becomes just a little bit more than it normally does. And he's trying to kick this ball real hard. He doesn't really need to. Um, and I mean, we're talking, golly, what do you think? 3 inches, 4 inches is probably the difference between this ball coming back in play or hitting the upright and going in.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you're 9 inches from it not touching the upright at all and being good. But I mean, you are
Yeah.
such a small amount away from this being good. And I know he was really disheartened after this kick. And I told him, I said, look, man, it's not easy kicking this scenario. It's easy to overkick right there. That was kind of my message to him going out was don't overkick it. And he came back to me and goes, yeah, I overkicked it. And I go, yeah, you did. So, that's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but it's not an easy kick. It's a long kick. It's a pressure situation, and it's a high school kid. And these things happen, and there's a reason that you really don't, unless you've got a premier Division I level kicker, outside of 35 really starts getting pretty tough.
Yeah.
So, I certainly, I didn't yell at him. I didn't criticize him. Like, he came back over. I tried to pick him up, and I said, listen, man, we're going to need you. We're going to need you. I said,
I did a little bit of the same. He was pretty down on himself, and I said, look, forget about it. I mean, what was the harm in that? I mean, we're only down by 3. It's a score. We're fine. So, I mean, you can kind of roll through this drive. This is kind of their.
There's another one.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is another one. We literally have this ball in 2 people's hands for an interception, and if Richie catches it, it's probably a pick 6.
Mm-hmm.
And we drop it twice again. I mean, you know what? Let's just get to halftime. That way, I think my stress level's going up just rewatching this first half right now. Holy Moses.
This is our last drive, and then we kneel on it.
We do a good job here of forcing them to punt again and not giving them a cheap score here late. Again, you can see them try to go downfield. We're well covered there. We're in a great hip-to-hip relationship, and they're They're
This
pressing
is
to
a
try to get
punt.
some points there late. They punt it, and then we end up just essentially.
Oh, I forgot about this one too.
Yeah.
This was one that we had dialed up, and you may recall this is a similar structure to, in terms of the block that we set up, a similar structure to what we did to Center Grove in 2018, where Riker runs in and tackles the punter. The difference here, so you saw the last one where they do this, and this guy sets up right here. And we had planned for that, and I knew if we could get him close to this hash that I wanted to try this. Play we call Georgia, and we've been really good at it, and we've blocked a couple of punts from it. So we had this in this week, but here's what screws us.
Yeah, how about this?
This had never happened.
Yeah.
This had never, ever happened. He'd never done that we had seen. And so they just jump in it randomly, and we've got the block called, and he just chips him enough.
Yeah, this is a 100% block if they do it the normal way. He almost gets it anyway.
I was so mad. And at this point, I'm like, what's he doing? Where's he going? Because we didn't expect that. And so he comes over here.
You can see Avon look over at him like, wait a minute. Like, Avon almost kind of walks over like, that's not right. Watch Avon.
Yep.
I mean, he's like, wait, that guy doesn't go over there. So he kind of walks over to go cover him.
That's just
all
how it goes.
It's all those little things. We essentially run the clock out here and then take a knee. So, yeah, that was, really, it wasn't a bad first half for us. And I'm not trying to make it sound like, oh God, if things go our way, we should have just blown Cathedral out. That's a great football team.
Yep.
But the message, honest to God, we have a couple very minor adjustments that we're going to make at halftime here. My message to the kids was essentially a very calming one. And I'll go over that tomorrow at the start of the thing. But I said, guys, you're playing really good football right now, and I actually recapped some of the things that didn't go our way that really, we don't have a ton of control over, and the only one that we probably had a little bit of control over was the missed field goal. And I did not blame Alex for it or anything like that, but I said, guys, that's a field goal off the post that makes this game tied,
Mm-hmm.
and the touchdowns off the board on little thing. I mean, 2 interceptions that easily changed the tide of that game early that we should have had. And, I just said, we're playing really good football. You've just got to believe that at some point here, those things are going to stop happening. The ball is going to go our way a little bit. I mean, there's no other way to explain that. And so I'll go over that tomorrow. But, yeah, I came into the locker room after the half. I was really pleased with the kids. I mean, we were losing at the half, and I was very happy overall with how we played. I thought we had executed pretty well. A lot of the reads and stuff were really sharp. We just had little things just kind of slowly bleed us out and kind of compound themselves. So, it was the first half that I kind of imagined it would be, as far as the score and it being a really even matchup. We just need a couple of breaks to go our way. And like I said yesterday, that's the game of football. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you said that at halftime of the Decatur game, the announcer had asked me that. That's the reality. In playoff football in general, sports in general, it certainly helps every once in a while to have a little bit of luck on your side. It's like you think of the Decatur game with Zach's throw to Colby. If that ball is 1 inch shorter thrown, 1 inch, that kid tips it with his fingers and Colby never catches it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that skill? Yeah. Zach's a very talented quarterback with his arm. He made some of the best throws in our program's history. But there's a little bit of luck involved in that too when you're talking about a literal game of inches where if that kid is 1 inch further with his fingertips, we don't catch that.
Yep.
If one of those kids hits Charlie in the legs while the other ones are hitting him in the upper body and he tips over, we don't see the greatest touchdown in the history of high school football, and we don't get points there. Sometimes things go your way. Decatur would say, my God, how unlucky is that? I mean, he broke 8 tackles. We had him dead to rights. We face masked him and it didn't get called. I mean, how unlucky is that he scored right there? Well, for us, pretty good stroke of luck by a great play by a great player. Sometimes things go your way, sometimes they don't. Right now, we've had a lot not go our way, and I wanted to make sure the kids understood that it isn't because of execution or effort or any of that stuff. Sometimes that's just the way life is. Sometimes things suck, and you've got to keep pushing forward and work so that you can maybe turn your luck around a little bit. And that's what we do.
First time we've been behind at halftime in a long time. Right?
Yeah, the last time that we had been losing at halftime was Columbus East 2016.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure 17 Zionsville, we went to the half tied. Yeah, we hadn't been losing at the half for essentially 3 years. We had not been losing at halftime in 3 years.
And the weird thing, I in some of those other games, I felt like you talked. I felt okay going in. I probably felt better going in to this game than I did a couple of other games, even from this season. I felt better going into this in the locker room than I did going in against Center Grove. I probably felt better going into the locker room in this game than I did against Whiteland. And we can talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, but like you said,
I would agree with that statement though, for sure.
But,
I felt really, again, I wanted to see the climate of the locker room, but when we walked in and we're talking as coaches, I felt really good that we were going to be fine. And then once I got to see the boys, they all were unfazed essentially. I mean, it's just a football game. They were ready for adjustments and ready for the message and ready to play. I had no before or after halftime. I didn't have really any anxiety about it. Some of that is I just didn't think there's no way that the second half can go that poorly again.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way that we can play 4 quarters where we just get, snake bitten by so many different things from so many different angles. It's got to be impossible. I'd like to think it was at least.
Well, and we end up being right, and we'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow. It finally starts to go our way a couple times here, and we get a couple of lucky plays that go in our favor, and our kids really execute in the second half, and we end up winning the football game. So, so we'll pick up here tomorrow, and we'll talk about the halftime adjustments like we usually do, and going to be a really exciting second half. Another example here, this was not a great first half of football, really, for either side. 10-7 game in a regional, but going to be a really exciting second half for our fans to cover tomorrow. So.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I'm sure they've got a lot of things that they wish they could, they would have, should have, could have as well. And that, again, that's football. It's not like I'm sitting here complaining about, oh, woe is us. I mean, believe me, nobody feels bad for us. Plus, we end up becoming state champions in a couple of weeks anyway from this game. So no one feels bad for us, but it's just, again, it's those little things that a fan may not notice or think much about, but as coaches, I mean, those are the little things that just tear us apart during a game and can really hurt. Again, like I've talked about, your psyche, your team's psyche, as an offensive coordinator, the ability to not let those things go and just move on. Okay. The one play that we ate a sack, is it easy for me to be really mad at the offensive lineman because they gave a sack up and yell at those guys and, oh God, you blew it. We had a huge play and you ruined it. I can, and I probably did do a little bit of that as far as getting on them about just their technique and some of that stuff. But as a coordinator, the important part is that play gave me information to make a good call later and have confidence in that call and have confidence that Lincoln understood why that call was being made. Those are the moments of clarity I think that are really important in the midst of all this is man, as things really just look bleak and they're not going your way, does that mentally affect you to the point where you stop making good decisions? Because now you're cheating the kids. If you can't get over the fact that you just blew a wide open verts call because you gave up pressure in a sack, and you don't have the clarity and focus to say, we had exactly what we wanted, it's still a good play that we can execute and get a big gainer out of, well, then you're not doing a good job because you're letting your emotions kind of take over. And truthfully, I think some people have asked me this question as well. On the headsets, I do get intense at times, but honestly, I'd say 2/3 of that is reflected at me, like back at myself for things I should have done better, I should have seen, or I should have been in a better situation. I get mad at myself oftentimes, but that's actually kind of how I focus myself in again. Doesn't work for everybody, but kind of those. It probably looks like I'm an absolute lunatic, because it looks like it'd be like for me, myself, and Irene, where I'm talking to two different people, and I'm the same person, but a little schizophrenic, I guess. But I am. That's kind of what refocuses me each time is almost being critical of myself in the moment, and that kind of dialing myself back in. But you can't let that emotion swing you the opposite way, where it completely derails you and you just lose sight of what the main objective is, and that's to keep getting information, feed that information to your kids, move the ball, protect the ball, score points. So, and that's what our kids do well too. So you're going to see in the second half us keep revisiting some of those things that didn't look real good just now, but are going to pay off big for us in the second half, because we just had something not go our way. But it doesn't mean it's a bad play or no good.
So let's go ahead and shut it down for the day. We'll pick it up here for a second half on Monday morning. Does that sound good?
Yep, sounds great.
All right. Well, we'll plan on seeing you guys Monday.
There are going to be a lot of people upset having to wait 2 days for the second half of this game, because it's a great second half. But go back and watch the other ones a little bit, or develop some questions and shoot some questions our way. But yeah, we'll resume on Monday.
All right. Well, as always, appreciate you guys watching. Send any questions you have, and we'll see you next time on Inside the Headset.